Joining us on today's Performance People is a Hollywood star and his personal trainer and friend.
Stanley Tucci is an actor, director and producer who starred in movies such as The Hunger Games and The Devil Wears Prada.
Joining Stanley is his personal trainer Monique Eastwood, whose client list reads like a who's who of Hollywood A-listers.
These two performance people truly know that the only way to get results is to put in a graft.
You refuse to be weak. Being as weak as I was incredible. Frustrating isn't even the word. I was so angry about it. I was furious. I was embarrassed about it.
I knew Stan really well, and I knew what he was capable of, and I also knew, because I'd been part of their family, I knew what a trauma he'd gone through. So I had to just give him back his confidence in himself.
In the efforts, guys, to get truly under the skin of both of you, we've done a little bit of research, obviously. Our first stumble into the forays of research came in the form this morning of a Negroni. This is one we made earlier. I don't know if we made it as well as Stanley would make one, but we tried. I mean, what is the key when it comes to making a great Negroni, Stanley?
Don't be afraid
Try it.
of the fact that it's all alcohol.
Yes.
And that's what people get
It's got some
nervous
punch,
about.
hasn't it?
Yeah, it does, yeah. It's 3 different kinds of alcohol. And obviously, if you shake it, you're diluting it. If you let it sit in your ice, you're having it on the rocks, it's going to dilute. But you don't want it too diluted, then it's just kind of gross. So, yeah, that's the thing that people go, oh my God, it's all only through. But actually, the mixture of them is so perfect that if you do it right, it doesn't taste alcoholic-y.
It's funny, actually, that, because I agree with you. I thought it was going to blow my head off this morning. I mean, I've only had 2 sips, so there is still work to be done on that. But
You'll
it
get
doesn't
there, yeah.
taste that alcoholic-y. I agree with you. There's something very smooth about it and quite silky.
Yeah, because the combination of the sweetness of the vermouth and the bitterness of the Campari just work so beautifully. They sort of hide any alcoholic taste that the gin would then impart.
Yeah.
I mean, Monique, as Stanley's trainer, presumably you're saying to him, can you not have too many of these over the course of an evening? Because the next day you're presumably trying to get him into the shape of his life. I mean, what is your advice to those of us who, like in moderation to eat and drink well?
Well, I do too, don't I, Stan? I like my food and drink, so you just got to, just got to moderate it. You can't just blast it every single day. If you're doing it for the weekend or like for an occasion, that's okay. But you've got to put your training in. The training is really important.
Yeah, you can't. I love to eat and drink. Obviously, I don't do either to excess. You do it in moderation, and the exercise I find is the thing that whether you've eaten a lot of pasta the night before, or red wine or whatever it is, you're just purifying yourself the next day. You're purging all that by exercise. And I'm not one for sort of purges in general. Do you know what I mean? Like purging one's system. I don't do that. I believe in just a sort of consistent, moderate diet with supplements and exercise. And so far, so good for the most part.
I'm not an extreme person, am I, Stan? I do know how to enjoy myself, but I do pull myself in.
Yeah, you're a little extreme. I mean, when we hang out, when we hang out together, like we'll be eating, like if we do it, if you come and stay at the house, or we stay at your house, or we go someplace and we all are vacationing, and we'll make those big lunches, right? That I love to make.
I'll eat everything.
With wine, of course. And then at first you see her panicking that we're going to have this big lunch. You see it happening. And she goes, "What are you making? Oh my God, you're going to make that? Oh my God. Oh yeah.
How much fun is
And
going
I go,
on
it'll
there?
be fun. It'd be great. Oh no, I can't. Well, we're going to have to go for a walk afterwards. We're just
Yeah.
going to have to do this. And we've already done like a great workout. You know what I mean? So like, I'm done. That's it. It's over. Okay.
He's a
But she's
bad
already
influence.
thinking at 3 o'clock, I'm going to have to go for a hike. We're going to have to go for a swim.
And we
We're going to
do.
have to do this. We're going to have to do another weight session. And I'm like, shut up. Shut up.
Fee's usually on my side.
Shut up. Sit down and eat. And then she does. And then she tries to get us to do another session. And I go, no, I'm not doing another session. Forget
So you
it.
have to put it
You
off
do
to the
another.
next
Knock
morning.
yourself out. I'm not.
Knock yourself out.
So
I'm
you
not
bribe
doing
her
what
with
you
a
do. But
10-mile jog.
I bet Ben's like that because you got that sportsman's head.
Well, I'm a little bit. I trying to avoid drinking during the day. I think trying to avoid that, but
Yeah.
apart from
that's something.
apart from the Negronis in the morning, but I'm
It's
not
not
sure
working today, is it?
No.
Yeah. Cheers.
But no, if you have a big night, definitely if you're having some wine or a big meal, the next morning you kind of feel like you've got to try and get it out of your system if it's going for a jog or a workout or whatever
No,
it is.
but I think this separates the athletes from the mere mortals, this conversation, because absolutely right, Stanley. There comes a moment where even if we have had a binge or something, like a big night or a big lunch or whatever that may be, you will still put on your trainers and go for a silly run for a decent length of time. Whereas I'm the same. I'm kicking back, I've relaxed, I'm done, I'm out. Like, try and get me the next day. You're not going to get me the rest of that day. So you do have this sort of inner driven steel thing, you guys.
Yeah,
There's sort
we
of
do.
this professional approach that's ingrained in you to just keep working harder and not have. Do you ever have an off day, Monique? Ever?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, not as I've got older, more. Not when I was younger. No, never had an off day when I was younger. But no, when I'm old, now that I'm getting older, I definitely do have an off day. But I don't have the choice to have an off day. But actually, maybe my husband would disagree. And I think I'm always I like to be active all the time. I mean, Stan, you know that even on a Sunday, I get restless. I can't sit on the chair, on the sofa. And just sit around. I have to just be busy.
Yeah. No, and I think that is one of the reasons why we also get along so well, because I can only sit for so long, and then I have to get up and do something. Like if I don't exercise for more than 24 hours, I start to short circuit. Like I can't even. I can't think straight. I can't if I'm traveling or doing whatever, or you have those horrible sort of shooting schedules, and I go like 2 days without a workout. I literally am about to like commit myself to a mental institution, and it's fascinating because it just gives me everything I need, and even if I am taking a day off, like today, I probably won't exercise today because I've done it. I need 1 day to not do it. But I'm writing now, but I'll only be able to do that for so long, and then I got to get up and move. And usually that movement means I'm cooking. Do you know what I mean? Which maybe isn't a good thing, but I know what you mean. I can only, like when we go down we've been to the Maldives, right, together.
Yeah,
I can do that for a little bit, and then I'm like,
you're restless.
we've exercised, we sat around, we had a nice lunch or whatever. But then I'm like, okay, now what? Now I got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
I got to do something. I got to move.
Like lying on the beach,
even if it isn't
enough.
exercise.
No,
what?
no.
Yeah.
You can't
Lying
lie
on the
to
beach isn't enough. But
No,
the other
I go completely crazy.
And the other interesting thing I found about it is I always thought when I was younger, as I get older, I'll just slow down a bit and I won't have that restlessness. But it doesn't seem to be the case, does it? It's almost more so as you get older that you feel more restless at times if you're not getting that exercise.
You
hit.
do fall asleep at about 8 o'clock every evening in front of the telly, in fairness.
Yeah, granted, maybe that's just the company I'm keeping. I don't know.
He's killed himself.
Although,
off on a
Stanley,
day.
I will say, we decided to watch again for about the upteenth time The Devil Wears Prada on Saturday. Was it Saturday night?
Yeah, and I didn't fall asleep
And
through
he
that,
didn't.
so it must be a good movie.
He loves a rom-com or something of that genre. Absolutely loves it. Gets truly stuck in.
I'm very flattered.
Take that as a
flattered.
big compliment.
That's an A-star rating for you.
Monique, one of the things we did ahead of this pod was I decided, I don't know quite why I agreed to it, but I did obviously, to partake in one of your sessions on Friday last week, and thought, let's give this a go. Let's step into Stanley's shoes and see what it's like to be in this live environment with Monique and taking me through a training session. And I am still slightly hurting today. So I don't know whether to love you or hate you in respect to that workout. But what is it that what journey do you want to take your clients on? Because they can come on it in many different forms. But for you, what's the most important part of this trainer-client relationship?
Well, I would say that I always want to get the best out of a client, and I can usually see what I can get from somebody from the first few sessions. It's always really interesting for me mentally how I can push a client, because I think that's always what holds people back. We're more capable than we think of pushing our bodies, and it's just fascinating for me as an ex-dancer who really loved what I did and pushed myself to my extremes, just to see, the average person going in the gym and pounding it out. And I just find, don't they want to find a little bit more that they can, discover about themselves? So that's the first initial thing, is pushing that mindset a little bit further. And then, the rest just sort of happens once the personality comes out, and then you can, it's connecting with somebody. It's not just walking in there and giving them a set of exercises. It's a connection.
How many of these training sessions are you doing a week with Monique? As you say, you like to keep right on top of your fitness. So how often are you signing up to what Monique's selling online?
Well, it depends on my week. If I'm filming, it's hard. But I'll go on and do some of the taped stuff, or she'll send me a session that she's done with Felicity. So now I've been doing just I think a couple a week recently with you, or a taped one, and then our usual Saturday morning yoga, an hour of yoga,
which we
sometimes sort of power yoga, sometimes stretching, sometimes both. And then in between that, I do my own workout, which is my own body weight, weights, and always incorporating some of her stuff into it. So for me, it's 6 days a week, and her stuff. I'm doing Monique is so brutal sometimes that I'm like, if I have a lot of stuff during the day, I'm like, no, I can't. Like, I literally cannot do her work. I have to do my own workout, because I'll just fall asleep in a meeting, or I'll just be limping around and I can't do it. Do you know what I mean? Or if you have like a 12-hour shoot day, you're like, I cannot do her.
But today. I can be kind.
You can be kind. No, hey, listen, Monique's classes used to be, and they used to all be an hour long. And I will take credit for saying, look, people can't.
No, he did.
People can't do that. They don't have necessarily the time, but also they'll die. They won't be able to do their jobs. So you need to do half-hour sessions. But the funny thing was, when she started doing them, this was my favorite. You're much better at it now. But when she started doing them, she would do them so fast, because she was trying to basically put an hour into a half an hour. And I was like, what are you doing? No, that's awful. We don't know how to make a transition. We can't. But now they are, I have to say, did a couple this week. They're absolutely the greatest thing
Thanks,
ever.
Dad.
Because they're so focused, and you walk, after 30 minutes, you think, you feel like you've exercised for like 3 days straight, but in a good way.
Posture, yeah. Posture.
You are very you are super inspiring. I guess one of those things about time is a big problem for everybody, isn't it? I know that the guys who run Ben's human performance team within the sailing team, they often say how frustrated they get by the fact that they've created this workout plan for you, and then you'll dive off stage left to take care of another meeting, or you'll go and have a technical chat with the technical guys and not prioritize the fitness. I think that's one of the things that often is the first, isn't it, to fall over in a lifestyle if you don't keep on top of it?
Yeah. You got to keep on top of it. You
Yeah.
really do. I mean, Stan, you're very disciplined, though. You've got that consistency. You know, for you, it's part of your lifestyle. It's become a habit, you know, and it's a good habit. You love doing it. You mix it up as well. It's like the stretch sessions, the hit sessions. Then you do your weight. You know, you're not just doing one sort of one-dimensional thing. You're doing lots of different
No,
things.
but you really taught me that to really change things up and obviously do more stretching, which is crucial. But the constant sort of changing every day the muscle groups you're using and how you're using them has made the biggest difference for me.
Good.
And also when I was sick, I mean, I was like 20, let's see, I was like 20 pounds lighter than I am right now.
You're tiny.
And I had lost 35 pounds from my illness. And Monique brought me back slowly, slowly, slowly. And it was really hard and it was really frustrating. She and this other trainer that I have. But she was incredibly patient with me, even though she's not a patient person. And it was it was amazing. I mean, and I'm in 10 times better shape than I was before I got sick.
How do you go about doing that? And somebody's had a consistent pattern of training and they're in good shape and they're, you know, all guns are blazing, and then suddenly, as Stanley's saying, they get this diagnosis and it's, you know, blows your world apart. And there's so much to consider alongside that. How do you approach it from a training perspective to try and get that person back on track, but carefully and quietly and in the right time frames?
Well, again, I would say you have to get inside that person's sort of head in a way, because I knew Stan really well, and I knew what he was capable of, and I also knew, because I'd been part of their family, I knew what a trauma he'd gone through. So I had to just give him back his confidence in himself, and that's a slow process because, you know, it was such an extreme illness. It's such an awful thing to try and recover from. And I just think it just took time and, you know, patience. We trusted each other, and I think you've got to trust each other here, and just give as much as you can deal with on that certain day. Reading the character of that person. Is his energy good today? You know, what expectations is he going to give himself? I don't know. It was a very sort of slow, you know, methodical. Take your time, build your core back, build your strength back in your center before you lift heavy weights. And it did happen. It happened, you know, over a period of time. I used to visit Stan at the house. And I think that was better than doing it online because it was much more connected. But yeah, I know it was a slow process, but we got there.
Oops.
We
We
did
lose you?
eventually. And with Daryl as well. I mean,
Temporarily, I
you've
hope.
got your
There
other
she is.
trainer as well. We worked together in that sense, we had the same mindset on how to bring Stan back to his former self.
Yeah, I think that the key thing that you did for me, like you say, is you're so very, very good at reading. You have incredible sensitivity to people, and you're very good at, in essence, reading the room and certainly reading the person. So you know you see if somebody's trying to push too hard. You see if somebody's is getting frustrated. You see if somebody is cheating themselves by not just quite getting that leg where it should be. And you're like, no, just lift that leg up just a little bit. You do it. And then everything, of course, you know, completely changes. You're so good at it. I've never actually met anyone who's as good at it as you are. Even on, you know, when we're doing it on, you know, Zoom or whatever, like you see stuff. I don't even know how you see it, but you're just really good at it and really aware of it. And that was the thing that for me, I mean, if you're a healthy person and you're working with you, that's great. If you're an unhealthy person, like I was after I was sick, to work with you was a real gift because it was like you were working with a person who was this incredible trainer, but also like a psychologist at the same time. And it was amazing.
How's that been, that sort of transition to going online? As you say, of course, you ideally be with your clients face to face, but can't often do that. But how is it? Has it been tricky to make that transition online, or has it just sort of come naturally and people still pick up those personal traits, nuances?
And I guess the form, right? The technique bit, that is the tricky bit, presumably, if you're not in the room with the person.
Well, I think, like Stan says, I obviously knew all my private clients, so they really know me and they know how I prod them with my finger all the time, and I'm very tactile. So they knew my oldies. They all knew me, so that was all right. The transition was much better for them because they knew exactly what I was doing. It has been a little bit harder for people I've not met, because then I've really got to sort of explain myself. And that's why if you do listen to some of my recordings on the app, I sound quite frantic with my instructions. I'm trying to breathe, do the exercises, and give you all these millions of instructions that you've got to think about because I've seen it all before. So I'm kind of gasping for breath while I'm trying to give you as much information as possible. But I'm quite good at sort of understanding how the human body works and moves. So I can see traits and why is that person not doing that well and what could be going wrong. Now, I think, you learn. It's not obviously as good as being in the room with a person, definitely not. But you are able to see enough on screen and give enough instruction to help a person through a workout safely and with enough technique.
Stanley, one of the interesting things that you mentioned just then was the fact that you think you've come back stronger and better after the illness and having sort of trained post that and got yourself to a really good place now. What do you think? What do you think that's about? Because I think other people my mum's a cancer sufferer, so we know how that can really hit you very hard as a person. And what do you think is the reason for that? Is that just sort of a very disciplined approach? Is it there's been a metabolism increase? So what do you put that down to?
It's a number of things. One is you refuse to give up and you refuse to be weak. Being as weak as I was incredible. Frustrating isn't even the word. I was so angry about it. I was furious. I was embarrassed about it. I was uncomfortable within myself. And I just thought, I've always wanted to stay strong as I've gotten older. And suddenly I went from, what was I, 58 or, 57 when I was diagnosed. I thought I suddenly went to feeling within literally like 3 weeks, I felt like I was 80 years old. And that lasted for a long period of time. I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs when I finished treatment, barely. So it was a refusal to stay weak. And then in order to do that, the key thing was my core, was strengthening the core again. And a lot of people, now it's a word that we use all the time, but when I started exercising, almost 50 years ago, then nobody used the word core. There's no such thing as core, pelvic floor, or anything like that. You know what I mean? It was just like, you work out your biceps, you work out your chest, you work out your whatever. And now, we all are aware, and, weight trainers talk about your core, and for me, strengthening that, Monique was the only person who could do that and help me get there. So everything radiated from there, which is not what it did before I got sick. That was not the way I worked out before I got sick. And the testament to it is that, when you're laying down and you cross your legs and then you just stand up, from the cross-legged sitting thing. I couldn't even come close to doing that before I got sick. Couldn't do it at all. And now
he just swells
it's
up.
Like a flower in the spring.
He does. He just emerges.
And And a total determination, presumably, to not be beaten.
Determination,
To actually
pure
get on top of this.
determination.
Yeah.
Yeah, pure determination. Because I loved athletics when I was young. I loved playing soccer, football, tennis, skiing, and all that. And I was determined that I was going to be able to do them all again. There was no way that I thought age will stop me, but I'm not going to I won't let this stop me.
No, that's a
Monique,
great person to work with. That is a great person to work with because you've already got a determination there. It's just trying to give them that patience with themselves. And Stan, then we sort of put it into a positive light, saying, okay, well, let's retrain the body now. You've started at a base level, and let's come back even better and really with more awareness. And that's a nice positive way to think about how to come back from a place where you're in such a low place, really.
Yeah.
And in a practical sense, where do you actually start? Do you start with the breath? Is that where you start, and then you build on that? I mean, how do you approach it, Monique, from a practical point of view? I mean, I know people will have who are dealing with disease and issues which are problematic for the body. There will be days where you have good days and bad days, but how do you best approach it, and how much time do you give to that?
That's an interesting question because, as Stan said, I'm quite an impatient person. So I kind of throw everything at that person and they're like, well, it's so much information. But I think the breath is hugely important because if you don't understand how the breath helps connect your core, and the breath is connected to your core, obviously, then, you really have to slow it all down. But then slowing it all down, some people get really bored because they think, oh my God, all I've done is breathe for the last 10 minutes. So you've got to try and put the breath with a movement and then try and get them to have that rhythm and that coordination with both things happening. And then throw movement in as well. And then over time, and don't expect to get it in the first few sessions, but over time it starts to become a habit, and you can see that person's now applying breath with the core connection, then the movement, and it becomes more of a rhythm to their body. So I'd just say it's patience and time and being consistent that is really pays off. It's not just like once every 2 weeks you do it, you pick it up, and you're never going to have it as a habit in your body.
And we talked about this before, but your clients like Stanley are very busy, got hectic lifestyles. How do you create the flexibility for them in their everyday lives so that they can, if they can't do a full hour, they could maybe do 20 minutes? Is there a sort of shortened version?
Because you're good at grabbing that. You're good at grabbing minutes, whereas I'm like, if I don't have half a day, it cannot be done. It's a different approach.
Dan, we're good. We master of adaptions. You have to just keep adapting. Stan's really good at that, and he'll send me a text. I've only got like 20 minutes, or I've only got 40 minutes, or we'll adapt because at the end of the day we want to train and we want to make that person the best, strongest version. So you'll make these are your clients. I mean, these are my clients, and I want them to function every day in the best way they can. So I'll find a time, and they'll find a time to connect. So I think we've done pretty well over the years. I mean, it's been a long journey, and we've always managed to connect. So whether they're in France, Italy, wherever you are, we seem to connect with each other. So, it's happened.
Yeah. No, it's really important. And you're always so generous and, making time for everybody, or just recording stuff and saying, just go to the thing and there it is. You can do it there. Or yes, I'll work with you at this hour. Because it's really important, because I don't think that people really understand the bizarre hours of filmmaking, and usually unnecessarily bizarre hours of filmmaking. Let's just say that, because a lot of filmmaking is just an exercise in how not to make a movie, and how to use time as inefficiently as possible. What?
Why is it so early? I mean, why do they have pickups at like 6 a.m.?
Idea. The whole thing is exhausting. I can't wait till it's over. I mean, it's like, it's like, it's insane. A lot of it is just the inability of people to communicate with each other. And when they do communicate with each other, it functions really well. I mean, there are people who make movies Steven Soderbergh makes movies very quickly, and they're very good movies. Then you have those people who sit there like for days on 3 shots, and 17-hour days, and you're like, what's happening? What is that about? So it's a very frustrating thing, and what it does is for you as a person, just trying to have a sort of trying to create a normal routine within this abnormal routine, you have to figure out a way to work out. Because if you're not working out, you're not going to have the energy you want. You're not going to be eating right, and you're going to be on set for hours and hours and hours a day. So for me, I always tried to keep it as consistent as possible, no matter what the hours are. So if you have to do a workout at 5 in the morning, you have to do a workout at 5 in the morning, and that's that. And then you have to bring your own food, because the food you're going to get is so bad that it'll
Well,
just make you sick.
I was going to get onto that. I mean, it's one thing to have unsociable hours and try and make the training work, but what about the food? I mean, presumably food on set is as bad as food at sporting events and wherever else you might go to, where we can share sort of similar stories on that. So what is it like? I mean, presumably, do you take your own, because you love to cook as much as you do? Do you cook for the crew? I mean, is that a thing that you like to do because it's a sort of a way to keep things normal?
You can't cook for the crew. You can't cook for the crew because you're so busy, and you can. And also the crews are huge. Unless you're doing the documentary show that I'm doing, which is like 8 people, you can't cook for a crew. You could have hundreds of people on a single film. Hundreds.
So how do you make it work?
I cook my own food, and I bring my own food, because it just gets worse and worse every year. And oddly enough, one of the worst places to eat movie food, catered food, is in Italy.
Is it?
Probably some of the worst food I've ever had in my life.
That's
And you wouldn't think that. No, it's really sad, because you're filming, that a mile down the road there's a restaurant that's an incredible restaurant. You can't go to that restaurant because you're filming.
Can we clarify something with regards to spaghetti bolognese? Because I'm really stuck here. Because you've blown my world apart by suggesting that spaghetti should never be served with bolognese. Is that correct?
I'm afraid so.
Oh,
and I'm
for
sorry
goodness sake.
to disappoint. I mean, you can do it, just don't tell anyone.
Not even my children who'll be eating it.
We've been getting
Don't
it
tell
wrong for the
me.
last 40 plus years, but yeah.
Okay, so what is the correct form to serve bolognese?
It can be a number of things. You can do, usually it's tagliatelle or fettuccine, or even like a ziti, or like a little rigatoni or something, even a half rigatoni. Those would be appropriate to eat with bolognese.
And nothing dried.
If you were to serve spaghetti bolognese in Bologna, I don't know. Who knows? They might arrest you or something. Who knows?
Probably would.
The Italians are so extreme.
So when
just
Stan
not
comes
done.
But
down
do you
to
guys?
stay,
Can I ask you a question? So your guys' diets, do you have a specific diet that you follow, or are you omnivores, or how does it work? What do you do?
I eat everything, Stanley. I eat absolutely everything. I am like a dustbin for food, but for good food. And my problem will always be, in fact, I've not been taking as much care as I should have been lately of myself, with 2 young children in tow and everything else. But as I said to Monique the other day, actually, my pleasure is food. I love good food. So if I can keep on top of my fitness and my health and everything else in order to eat what I want to be able to eat, that's my absolute perfect equilibrium balance. I'm happy with that. If I can keep on top of everything by being able to eat nice things, then that's fine. Ben, on the other hand, you love your food too, but you are so much more disciplined than I am, aren't you? You are able to say no.
Well, because I've got a sporting challenge. I've got to make a certain way in for competition and those sorts of. So that forces me to. I think if I didn't have that, then I might be a little bit weaker in terms of my diet.
And I could be more helpful and cook less things like spaghetti bolognese with dried pasta and actual spaghetti instead of rigatoni.
Yeah,
but you have to come in at you have to come in at a certain weight.
That's right. That's right. So we have a crew. We have 6 of us on the boat on the
Yeah.
circuit that we're doing at the moment, and we have to come in a certain weight. So we go into an event. We've got our target, and if we turn up for the weigh-in and you're above your target, then you get you got 5 grumpy people looking at you, saying, "Well, why have we all now got to go for a run
Well, you need to be
lose
able to allow
2,
one
3,
of
4
the
kilos?" or
one of
something?"
the heavier guys.
Yeah.
One of the heavier guys that's grinding on the bars needs to be able to be as heavy as they possibly can be, right, in order to get the maximum power for the
We're
hydraulics.
getting far too technical now,
Is it-
Georgie.
Oh.
That's it. You've got it.
I've
You've got
proven
it.
to Ben that I have listened for some of the years
Yeah.
that we've been married.
Yeah.
But that is how it goes, isn't it?
That's
so they
that's
need
right.
to have
That's
maximum
right.
weight. Yeah.
So
Oh, I see.
I'm constantly
I see.
trying to keep the weight down a
So
bit.
you
but
should be like a jockey.
yes,
but you're not.
Sort of a jockey on water.
Yeah. So what does the best diet look like?
Oh, that's tricky because I love good food. Yeah, I like you, Georgie. I like good food. I like good food. I mean, when Stan comes to stay with Fee and the kids, I let him go straight in that kitchen because I love the Mediterranean way of life. Fresh vegetables. I'm not cooking. He's straight in that kitchen, and it's beautiful, fresh food and fish. And I love meat. I love everything, but I don't eat a lot of junk. I mean, in fact, I don't eat junk. You know, I like my red wine. I like Stan's cocktail. You know, I'm not saying no to anything, but it's really a very I'm not doing it every night. I'm very vegetable, protein, fresh. I don't snack. I'm
Yeah.
normal.
I think that's the key.
That's
That
key.
for me is the key thing. Like I don't snack. Even on movie sets, I don't really snack.
That's
I
impressive.
don't eat processed food. I never
Yeah.
have eaten processed food. I never liked processed food.
Not even when you're really
And
bored.
no, when I'm really bored, no. I've learned on movie sets that you just can't, you know. I mean, there have been those nights where you finish working and you're like, there's no place to eat. You're so exhausted, and your dinner is basically a can of Pringles and a beer in your sad hotel. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's
Yeah.
sometimes the actor's diet.
Yeah, I've been there. It's a shocker.
Oh, it's so sad. You know, you've worked out, you've done the thing, you've been so good all day trying to, and then you're like, that's my dinner, you know. But I think
wouldn't eat.
I think that not snacking is the key thing. I don't eat sugar. I just don't. It doesn't sit well with me. Never has. I just don't eat it. I'm not interested in sweet things, and I think that helps a lot. But I think also what you guys were saying before is really key, which is it's really the consistency of exercise that makes a huge difference. And I know, guys, I have friends and men and women, but a lot of the guys, they'll go like, "Oh man, I haven't done anything for 3 months," and I'm like, how do you function? And as you get older, to go back and try to regain that and get to where you were just becomes harder and harder and harder every year. And to take that extra layer of whatever you've put on, is going to take twice as long to get rid of. And I've never ever stopped. The only reason I ever stopped exercising was because of illness. And I think it's that consistency that really keeps you in balance.
I agree.
And when you
Totally
came
about
back
the
from your
consistency.
illness, Stan, did you feel when you came back from your illness? Was there a moment where you felt, yes, okay, this is all clicking now again. I'm getting back on track. I really feel like I'm getting stronger, and I can feel like you can see the path ahead as a much brighter one.
There wasn't really one moment, because the hard thing about going through those treatments is that suddenly you'll feel better, and then it falls back a bit, and then you get better. I'm definitely there now, but I can't say that there was one single moment. There's still parts of my body, like my legs, I really need weights to build up my legs, and so that's the next challenge. I'm going to have to.
but
I
also,
don't have room
Stan,
for a leg machine.
you didn't. But also
squat rack.
your eating. You weren't eating much food, so it was like hard to build muscle.
No, I couldn't
back,
eat. I
wasn't
had a
it? Yeah,
feeding
you couldn't
tube.
eat. Yeah.
I would make like I remember making like egg fried rice because I wanted to get like some protein and I needed some carbs. And I'm making it, and then I would put like chicken broth in it, and then I would puree it and put it into my feeding tube, which was a syringe like this big and about that round, and I'd stick it right here and inject it into, and then I would do it like with pasta and beans. I would do because I couldn't eat it through my mouth, but I knew I needed and I do like lots of chicken broth, bone broth, all that sort of stuff to get it directly into me. Otherwise, it would have taken me like 4 hours to eat it, and I couldn't even eat it. So that kind of stuff is like to me, I just had to go. They give you protein shakes and all that sort of stuff, which just completely messed up my
Disgusting.
stomach. And I was like, no, I'm going to go back to my diet that I know and that my stomach can tolerate and that I know is going to build me back up again. And that's what it was.
Yeah, because you have to have the food, obviously, to build the muscle.
For somebody so passionate about food, that must have been. I mean, what on earth did that feel like? The idea of a feeding tube in itself is horrendous, but the reality of that, and then actually you getting on top of that by making yourself something nutritious, I guess, was a way of controlling that or having some control over it.
Absolutely. And it was horrible. I mean, it was horrible. If I thought I was never going to get better, it felt like that, And again, you just felt embarrassed. I felt embarrassed, and I felt sad because I couldn't sit at a table with people. It was too hard to eat. Things smelled awful, and I couldn't swallow. I couldn't. I still have difficulty. There are still certain things I won't eat in public because I can't really eat them well. I always I go for sort of softer foods. But it was, trying to inject yourself with a concoction of something that is going to keep you healthy is really embarrassing. You sort of pull yourself off into a corner and do it, or you do it up in your bedroom or whatever. Even in front of my family, I would feel embarrassed. Now, that's my own issue, but I hated it,
Because I don't think you're
weakness is.
yeah, you don't like to be in that sort of, you don't
Well,
like to make a drama out of anything. Stan's not that person. He's just like wants to get on with things. So I think that was difficult to
I
be
do, and
potential.
what that does is it makes you angry.
Yeah.
So I was angry a lot, as my wife can attest to.
Poor thing.
I guess as well, it's like this position of vulnerability, isn't it? That nobody really wants to be put in as well. It's all those things, isn't it, combined, which just make you, like you say, furious at the situation.
Yeah, make you furious. To feel that vulnerable is infuriating and scary. Like it's scary because you think, am I going to be like this for the rest of my life? Will I never be able to do those great workouts with Monique? Will I never be able to really sit and have a great dinner with Monique and Danny again? Because that's what gives me the greatest joy in life.
But look at us.
Not just
we are.
Monique and Danny. I mean,
No.
other people too. But,
So what did you do, Stanley? You weren't able to work out when you get that frustration out that way. So what was the mechanism to
Because
get
people
through
use
that?
Pinterest. I swear to God.
Okay.
You go, and I would watch stuff on my iPad, or you go into the visual, to sort of disconnect from how awful you feel because you're nauseous. I was nauseous 24 hours a day for months. Just felt so terribly ill from the effects of the radiation and the chemotherapy. It lasted a really, really long time. So you go into the visual, to remove yourself from your kinesthetic self. And then eventually you start exercising and you can start to eat a little bit more and so on and so forth. And it's been 5 years, it's an incredibly slow process. But I couldn't do much. I couldn't really read because I felt so sick. It was weird. It was weird. Thank God for Pinterest and pasta grannies. I don't know if you know that other show that's on YouTube, but it's like 6-minute segments of these Italian women cooking. No one is under the age of 80, cooking pasta dishes from all over Italy. It's probably like the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. So I would watch that.
I bet they never made the mistake of putting dried spaghetti with bolognese. Oh, they did. Oh no, they didn't. It's fine.
Well, you know.
I have to tell you something which is going to make you feel good now. I found myself last week, I was having the world's most stressful day and I was walking through the streets of London and I told Monique this actually, I felt very harassed and very, threatened by all sorts of things that were going on in our world. And I thought, I've got half an hour to walk from A to B. I'm going to put on Stanley's audiobook. I'm going to put it on and I'm going to listen to it and I'll get a couple of chapters in whilst I'm going from A to B. Well, you calmed me right down. I said to Monique, your voice is so lovely to listen to that I said, you're almost like a replacement for, that whale music that people listen to get them to sleep at night or something like that. I found myself thinking, that the equivalent of whale music for other people is Stanley for me.
What a compliment.
Yeah. It was, I want you to feel good about that because it was a lovely moment. I feel calm.
Oh, you're very kind. I really appreciate that. And I've been putting women to sleep for years by talking.
I'd love Fee's comment on this.
But it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing, isn't it? An audiobook for an actor. I was thinking though, an audiobook for somebody like you. Well, that's brilliant. That's a golden opportunity. I mean, that you're going to be great at that. I was thinking of other audiobooks out there where people who have written the book aren't necessarily going to have those abilities to narrate it in such a way. And, that's a major downside. If you're not an actor, then the audio probably suffers hugely.
I always kind of cringe when you see the audiobook and somebody wrote it and it says, read by the author, and you think, oh, no, don't do that.
It's going to be awful.
Don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're a great writer, but don't read it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, I can think of one in particular. Probably shouldn't go there.
Prince Harry.
Yeah.
Prince Harry's latest film. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anyway, never mind. We digress.
Monique, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did you think that you would end up, years ago, I know you wanted to train people. Obviously, you were a dancer, but you wanted to train people. Did you think that you would end up doing what you're doing today?
No.
In the way that you're doing it?
No. And I definitely didn't. I was just, teaching in local halls and visiting people's houses and, doing my thing. I'm very disciplined human, so I was just doing my thing. But I think COVID obviously changed a lot, and the generosity of Stan and Fee posting Biceps by Monique on his Instagram suddenly blew everything up into another sort of zone for me. And it's been really the generosity of them as my clients that have catapulted me into this online business. I think I would have carried on plodding, doing the same thing I've always done because I'm that kind of person. I'll just keep on going and
because you were driving. I don't know if people know, but you were driving into the city. So that was into London. You were like an hour and a half out of the city, right? Mm-hmm. On a good day.
Yeah.
And you would drive in and do a session or two and then drive home again. Like the amount of travel time and the amount of effort, and somebody would be like in North London and somebody would be in
3 hours North London.
And you weren't charging exorbitant amounts of money at all. In fact, you were undercharging. And I suppose in a weird way, the COVID thing kind of helped. But also you had trained Emily.
Yeah,
right?
I used to go to Emily on set. Yeah, so I used to drive up to do a session with Emily at the end of her working day, either on set at Pinewood or Shepperton. Then I would go either to her house, which was doing Mary Poppins. Then I'd try and fit in another client because I was teaching other clients maybe in Fulham or London Bridge. There was another client. Then there was one up in Hampstead. So it was I'd have to try and gel all the clients so that I went from there to there to there to there, and then obviously come up to Stan and Fee as well, where they were in South London, which was obviously the easiest one to get to. But yeah, it was a constant in my car, driving left, right, and centre, and just trying to juggle my local clients with the clients up in London. And when they fly in, can you get around their schedules as well? So it was completely exhausting. And then COVID happened, and suddenly I had to learn to work a computer, which I'd never obviously sat in front of one in my life. So then suddenly that happened. Thank God my daughter was in lockdown with me. And then, you know, the gorgeous generosity of Stan and Fee posting that, suddenly everyone was like, who's this person? And it just went from there, which was great, which has been great.
How do you juggle all these people? You've got some serious names on your books, Monique. It's like a who's who of Hollywood A-listers. And then you've also got your regular clients too. I mean, how are you getting everybody where they need to be and keeping yourself sane at the same time?
It is complete mayhem on a Sunday afternoon because everybody's diaries then come into action. But, you know, there's priorities as well and I also know kind of more or less where I kind of direct people to the slot I want them in, because then I know how I can fit my day. And my local clients, I must be honest, have been amazing. They know that I have, when there's somebody filming, like if somebody's on a filming schedule, it's like Stan says, it's a crazy schedule. So they know that I'm working on a film with somebody. So they know that I'm going to juggle them a little bit more during the week. America wakes up at about 2-ish or 1-ish. So I know I've got the morning for the British clients, and then I've got the American clients in the afternoon. So it's a constant juggle, but it only very rarely goes wrong, and then I hate it. I hate it when it goes wrong. I like to see everybody every week and be consistent with them. So I will find a space and a time. I'm just that person.
There's something very special that happens, though, when you join Monique's class, because when you join Monique's class, and it's a live class, you very quickly, everybody, before they has a chance to turn their camera off and their sound off, so you are projected into this sort of classroom setting environment. And there was a moment where I did think, could I be on the same fitness class as The Rock? I mean, because it could happen, couldn't it? It could conceivably happen.
I don't know. I do think DJ would do my class. And I did teach his gorgeous wife for a while. And I watched him in the background. My God, he can lift some serious weights. Wow. No, I don't know if he could be. But Stan used to
pressing you.
Yeah, no, he would bench. Oh, no, I'd be too light. He lifts extreme. But Stan, you used to pitch up in the early lockdown. I mean, everybody loved Stan and Fee on
you had everybody. It was like half of so many different, people I knew in England or in America or wherever, depending on the time, were there in the class. You had amazing.
It was great. That was the good
amazing
positive.
people. It was really cool. You'd sort of go like, "Oh, hi, how are you? I haven't seen you for a long time." Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, your friends in the acting world were there. It was
you
cool.
just needed one of these for after. Like, let me just cobble together a quick Negroni, and we'll keep everyone stay on the line, and we'll all have a drink together after.
Georgie, everybody loved
like
having
our version.
Everybody loved signing in to know that Stan might be there on their screen, so they would all pitch up, which was great. So that was a fun time, I would say, when we were doing our Zoom calls.
It's a little creepy, but yeah.
It's like my stalker club, I hear.
They made them work really
lovely.
hard.
It's actually it was. Yeah, no, it was a really, it's a unique thing that you've got going on there. So that's very impressive. Because we're on a Performance People podcast, which is what this is, I wanted to ask you both for a performance hack. So something that we could both do better and everyone listening can do better watching every day that will really enhance their lives. So I don't know who wants to go first, but I'll put it out there as a performance hack.
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? What is that?
What's one thing that you do every day which makes you perform better? If you had to put it down to one thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, I see.
A tip.
A double espresso.
It's done.
Very good. I reckon that's the best we've had yet.
I'm not kidding.
Very good.
I'm actually not kidding.
No, he's not.
I love how real that is. That's a properly good, real
Yeah.
tip. Perfect.
Best we've had.
Monique?
No, well, I mean, obviously I have that as well, but I would say keep weights in your kitchen and then you just trip over them and you have to pick them up. So you've got them there,
Ooh, that's
right
good.
there under your feet. Yeah.
That's
what I would
funny.
Really good. I have that
That's
in the
very
form of children's toys. Can I use children's
Yes,
toys
well,
instead? I've
No,
got plenty
yeah.
of those
Heavy.
sort of scattered around the place.
Georgie, you need a couple of
Oh,
5
trust me,
kg
some of them are heavy.
weights. Oh, but
I'll just pick my daughter up. That'll do it. All fits. Right. Cheers, both of you. Thank you very much. It's still somewhere in the world. It is gin o'clock. So cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Cheers.
for us.
Thank you so
not
much.
for us, Dan.
It was great.
Yeah, thank
Lots of
you.
fun.
Yeah, coffee. Yeah.
Thanks,
yeah.
guys.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye,
Nice to
bye,
meet you all.
Bye. Nice
See
to
ya.
meet you too.
That was another really entertaining chat. I mean,
Are you comfortable with the fact that I am a little bit in love with Stanley Tucci?
Not really, but it's okay.
Just a little
It's okay. But no, he was, well, they were both wonderful, weren't
charming.
they? Lovely people. Yeah. And I think we had the best performance tip yet in this series,
Honest.
which was a double espresso. I mean, absolute gold dust. So, yeah, nice one, Stanley.
Not like everyone can't just put that straight into their lives tomorrow morning, which is perfect.
Quite.
On a more serious note for me, my sort of takeaway was Stanley talking so honestly and candidly about serious illness and how to bounce back from that. I think a lot of people listening or watching will take such inspiration from a Hollywood A-lister talking about that and his experience of that, and how obviously you need to be determined, but you also need to put the right safeguards in place in order to come back physically in the right way too. And he says he feels better than ever, which, you know, for people who are going through something horrible at this moment in time, will, you know, they'll take great comfort from that, I suspect.
I think it was inspiring, wasn't it, listening to him talk about coming through that journey and out the other side.
Yeah. Thank you for watching and or listening. This has been Performance People. We are Ben and Georgie Ainslie. And remember, from what we've learned today, leave weights hanging around in the kitchen so that you can trip them up and pick them up again. And you could either do that before or after your double espresso.